I'm enjoying a lot of that. Just kind of, relaxing in LA. So in
There
between the
is
gigs.
there is a lot of difference between that's a whole comedy set.
Yeah, it could be. Absolutely. Let's just
Yes,
workshop. Let's just workshop bits. We don't need to do an interview. You've already talked to me before.
I know.
We'll just
Just like the
workshop.
difference working out at a gym in LA versus or getting a Starbucks in either city.
Really? Because I feel like Starbucks are pretty universal.
No, like for instance, in Oregon, or LA, it'd be, hi, how are you? I love your dress. What a cute necklace. Oh, thank you. I like. In New York is like, give me your order and get the hell out.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, but customer service. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I mean, Starbucks is pretty, it's like a dictatorship. So they make sure their employees are pretty nice all around or they lose their benefits. You know what I mean? So, I think, yeah, I know what you're saying, but I miss a little bit of the attitude. It's almost like they're too nice in LA, and I mean, it's like, my girl was at CVS and she asked for a stamp or something. And then they said, oh, we can just mail your letter if you want. We're like, dude, you're CVS. And like, it was so funny. She did a whole bit on it. It was so funny. It's like in New York, they would just like throw it in the trash can. So that's the whole time she's just like, should I give this letter to CVS? Are they going to mail? It was just it was way too nice. But we do like niceness though. I am so tired of New York. I don't miss New York at all. I like people are like, do you miss New York? I go, nope. I miss a few people and I miss the abundance of stage time, but that's about it. The pizza, I guess, pretty good pizza, but that's about it. And the bagels are not bad, but everything else is like I don't miss the R train. I don't miss some naked dudes. I just don't miss all that energy. So can I get enough of that? In LA, if I miss naked dudes, I could just walk outside. I live on Hollywood Boulevard, so I can just walk out there and I can see a naked dude anytime I want. So I don't feel like I'm missing that, but it's fun though. Yeah, you gotta try new stuff. So anyway, we've been in LA 2 years now. Just we're barely here, so it's kind of fun.
Congratulations. How long have you been with Precious Leah?
Precious Leah. I'm not supposed to say, because then it ages her. So I'll just say we used to do Blockbuster dates together. That's all I'm gonna say. We used to rent Blockbuster DVDs together. So that's all I'm gonna say. I can't say the exact time. I always get in trouble when I do.
It's better than picking her up at Toys R Us.
Yeah, well, maybe I did. I don't know. We don't know Toys R Us, but it's not just for kids. So why would that be weird? You know what I mean? It's Toys R Us. I like toys.
Your relationship outlasted Blockbusters, so that's good.
It did. It did. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted you to come on today to talk about surviving in the business and your observation. I mean, to a lot of us that are barely out of open mics, I say that, some of us are still stuck in them or in bringers. You've arrived because you're traveling. You've got specials out there and you're traveling and opening and doing comedy with Nate Bargatze, for crying out loud. Who wouldn't kill to have that? You better watch your back.
He doesn't like most people, so good luck, guys. And you got to know how to golf. So that's a very limited group of people, and I can't golf very well, but But
That's better than
I was
beating
there in
a
the
bastard.
beginning. I was there in the beginning when he wasn't as funny. So that's the thing. He gives back to people that were there in the beginning. So
That's so cool. Well, let me read your intro. I know I've had you on before, but it says
yeah,
that here that you've done USO tours.
yes,
OMG.
13 of them. Yeah,
Thank you so
yeah.
much. As a military veteran who's the reason you're speaking English, I just want to thank you for that. You've done the show
Well,
Crash.
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I was going to say something funny about that. But it's just like
Please do.
as a
Please.
Native American, I don't know, if English is what I'm supposed to be speaking, but whatever. We should have built a wall in 1491. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, go ahead. Go ahead with your military duties.
Oh man, I've got a neighbor who's Native American, and I walked by his house apartment the other day when it was Thanksgiving, and I said Happy Thanksgiving, and I'm like, how do I take that back? So
Yeah.
bad.
Thanks for giving us syphilis and taking our land. Anyway, go ahead.
You've been on Crashing with
Yes. Yes, I was on Crashing.
Showtime's White Boys in the Hood.
Let's talk about those two things. So Crashing was fun. I did it was an HBO show that was created by Pete Holmes and Judd Apatow, and it was all about Pete's experiences as a New York comic. And he was one of my young guys when I was running shows at the Boston Comedy Club, and I would have him bark for me and things like that. And so it was funny when I got on the show. I played myself, which was great, like starring as himself, which who doesn't want to do that? Remember the Love Boat? You'd be like, Chario, as Chario, like it was like such a thing to play yourself on a TV show. So I was very excited about that. And it was funny. I played myself and I was supposed to just do a set. They wanted me to be doing comedy, like pretending I'm doing comedy. It's the weirdest thing. Like you're basically doing your set, but it's not really a set because it's, they're filming the thing for a TV show, but it's not like a live audience. They did have people in the crowd. And then they said, just be natural. What you would regularly do in a comedy club, what would you do? And we're going to film it like that. And so I started talking to the audience, asking them questions. And then Judd Apatow was like, cut. He's like, you can't ask them questions that they'll answer back because they're extras. And if they talk, we got to pay them more. So just do your act. Don't ask them questions. It's really funny. Anyway, so there's that. And then you said Showtime White Boys in the Hood, which that's such a funny, because you could never do that show now. Like they would never allow you to do something called that now. Like that show would be canceled on your way to the stage. Like it was it was white comics doing black jokes in front of black audiences. And so it would there's no way you could do it. But it was really good comics. It was like Jessica Kirson, Laura Kilmartin, Rich Voss, like it was, Kurt Metzger. It was a lot of really good people. And it was just kind of a funny idea for a show. But the thing is, a lot of us in New York came up through kind of urban rooms and Black and Latino and stuff. So we knew how to work those crowds. And so that's kind of how we got funny, because, an urban crowd will let you know right away if you're funny or not. And so, that's kind of how that happened. I think there was so many of us that were kind of like Eminem comics. Like we could work both sides. So, yeah, anyway, keep going. I'll give this is the longest intro ever. You start to intro me, and then I just tell the whole thing on it. Anyway, all right, what's next?
And that's our show for today, folks. Okay, so you got 2 albums on Sirius.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
2 albums on Sirius XM, on both off Comedy Records. It's a label out of Toronto. They have Aaron Berg and who is it? McIntosh, somebody, Nick McIntosh or something. Nate McIntosh, that's it. Yeah, my first album was just kind of all the stuff I've been doing over the years, and it's called Stop Telling People That, and that's my first album, and it was great. I actually have it here. Look at this, the old CDs, huh?
Yeah.
This is the last one left. I found this the other day. I was just like, gosh, this is the last one. You can't even sell. You can't give a CD away now. It's like, yeah, but it's a coaster too. People are like, no interest in CDs. And then the second album I'm most proud of. It's the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. And that was it's the Zoom album 2020. And so I recorded a live album 2 nights over Zoom, and actually got it on Sirius XM, and the audio, we engineered everything. And so, because we didn't know what we were going to do during the pandemic, nobody could tour or play clubs or anything. And so I made this album, and then the hardest part was convincing Sirius that it was good enough audio wise, and it turned out nice. So that one is it's available on Apple and all that stuff. But it was that was something that I'm actually really proud of. That one. There's a lot of personal stories and stuff. But so Sirius XM is great for comedians because they put our stuff out, and like we can just make revenue and stuff. So anyway, that was pretty cool.
So the one that's out that you recorded on Zoom, what's it called, and how do we buy it or rent it?
That one's called the Zoom album 2020, and Dustin Chafin, the Zoom album 2020. So, but you can get both these albums on Apple and all that stuff, wherever records are sold and downloaded, whatever that is anymore.
Yeah, super. So what's it like to really be on the road in these huge...
We're gonna do one more big plug. So what I'm most proud of, I just dropped a comedy special on Drybar Comedy, and that's what's current and new. So we can talk about Nate later. Let's talk about me. So I dropped
Yeah,
So
he
I
can
dropped this
wait.
special, which is great. If you don't know much about Drybar comedy, it's kind of a, clean comedy, which I think is definitely something I've had to work on over the years, and I enjoy it because your audience is just so much bigger. When I do work with Nate or people like that, you see kids in the crowd and things. So it's nice to know you can do comedy and the whole family can enjoy it. And that's kind of what Drybar is. And so I have a new Drybar special. It's called Cranky Pants because apparently my girlfriend named it, and because I'm a little cranky. And it was a great experience. It's filmed in Provo, Utah. That's where they do all the specials. And here's a backstory that's kind of funny. In high school, I met a Mormon girl and went through a Mormon stage. And so I became a Mormon missionary. And I lived in South America in Santiago, Chile. And before I went on this mission, I was Mormon for about 6 years. And then I was like, okay, can't do this anymore. But those 6 years, and then those first 2 years, I was a missionary. I had to go to the missionary training center in Provo, Utah. So that's where I learned how to, read the Book of Mormon and tell people about it, and then learn Spanish. All that stuff was in Provo, Utah. And so I hadn't been back there. And then in years, over 20 years. And then when I came back, I was filming a comedy special there. So that was really a fun thing to kind of, and I did a lot of Mormon jokes and talk about, being a Mormon, dating a Mormon, all these things that happened. And so that was cool. It was a really cool experience. So you can check that out on drybarcomedy.com. And yeah, really proud of it. It was a fun special. That's really a really great organization they have over at Drybar.
How many dry bars have you done?
This is the first one. Yeah, this is the first one. So
How many people have viewed it so far?
It's getting pretty good. I think they're cutting it up. I had one that's 1.2 million and stuff, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, we're getting there.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was fun.
That's fabulous. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All
And
right.
Wise Guys here in Vegas is like my home club.
Yeah, they're a good club. Yeah, it's if Keith will email you back, it's a good time.
Yes.
You
He's
got to
gonna
show up at his
say
house.
no.
You got to show up at his house to get a spot, but it's cool. Like, Keith, looking through the window. Keith, can I just get one weekend? Anyway, he's a great guy. I love the guy.
He was at Wise Guys in Salt Lake when I went
Yes.
there to visit on the mic. And
Yeah.
somebody who thought I was hot shit took me over to meet him and said, "This is Linda Marcus Smith." And he's like, "I'm busy with this ladder, okay?"
Yeah,
I don't have time.
Yeah, comedy's a funny thing. I think I'm headlining, Lee and I are both headlining the Vail Comedy Festival coming up this week, actually. We're going out. It's like 4 nights, and I think I'm teaching a class or something on comedy etiquette. And I have no idea what I'm doing. I just said I would do it, and I have to figure out what I'm going to say. But a lot of it is about that. It's about walking cold into a comedy club. What do you say to a booker, or what do you say to a comedian that you want to meet, and how do you, just the etiquette of just kind of, getting to know people and not being annoying, and how to, obviously you want a spot, but not be so, eager about it, and, how to kind of just, be accepted into the comedy family, which I think a lot of people, there's a lot of funny people, because I ran clubs for years and shows and things like that. And there were people that were funny. It had nothing to do with that, but they were so freaking annoying that nobody wanted to book them, because it was like they asked for a spot every 5 freaking seconds. And, they emailed you all day long, or when they hung out, they wanted to run bits by you, or they wanted to just, annoy the big comics that were there instead of kind of just learning and observing and stuff. And so it is an interesting thing that people don't think about. I don't think people really talk about it, but the etiquette of how you, speak to somebody. If you see a guy on a ladder that's doing something in the club, probably wait a minute, and to introduce yourself. so
I would have never even thought it was him with the ladder.
Yeah, but just finish hanging stuff, and then maybe introduce yourself that you're a comedian. That's the thing. People don't know. They don't know.
There's so many things I've done wrong in the business, not knowing. Like inviting a headliner to come watch you at a bringer show, for instance.
Yeah. Drinking for 12, 15 years. I mean, I get it. We've all done bad things in comedy. Yeah, I mean, and it is true, and you learn from it. And I feel, yeah, I mean, I have so many mistakes in comedy about things like that, and it's like, but you just, I mean, there's nothing you can do. You grow as a person, you mature as a person, and you try not to do those things again. You try to just, do better at the next club. But there's some clubs that still
Yes.
won't have me. They're like, yeah, they're like, you quit drinking? Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm like, dude, it's been 15 years, and they're like, okay. They still don't believe me. It's like going to meetings. I got coins, having birthdays. They're like, yeah, okay. That's how bad it was. That they just think I'm gonna relapse second show in.
Let's go back to your USO tours that you've done. That,
Okay.
being a military veteran, that's most all I want to hear about, to be
Yeah,
honest.
they're fun. I enjoy them. I think the first one I did was Japan and Korea, which was a lot of fun. And it was 2 weeks and in Korea and Japan, which was great. And just, getting to know that part of the world was fantastic. First time I'd been there, so that was great. And yeah, you're just doing, you've done them, I'm sure. You just do shows on the base, and then to get to kind of walk around in a place like Korea and Japan. There's not really, much going on where it's safe. It's not a war zone. And so you can kind of just, relax and enjoy the town and the city and everything, country and whatnot. But yeah, it was great. And then I've done some in the Middle East, and did one actually with Nate and Lee. I took both of them. They both opened for me. It was Kuwait, Iraq, and Djibouti, Africa, and that was a run that we did together. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, I remember it being just so freaking hot, and we did a show outside, and we're like, it was so hot. It's like 100, literally, like it was like 140, like that's how like it felt, like 140 degrees. We're like pouring water on our heads, and like during the show, we're just pouring water on our back. It was so hot. But
Wow.
yeah, these shows are great. It's a lot of like soldiers and stuff that are homesick, and so they see somebody like me or Nate or Leah. It's like it reminds them of people they know, and a lot of them are Southern, and a lot of them, so it's like, we get to bring that thing that they're missing. If we're talking about McDonald's, or we're talking about, whatever, it's like, it's good for their psyche and their being, because they're out in the middle of the desert doing stuff sometimes they're not quite ready for. A lot of them are just children. I mean, they're barely 19. And so it's, that kind of stuff. And it's yeah, it was nice. It was really rewarding to do all these things, and just to get to see certain parts of the world through comedy, which is great, because you have no idea when you're starting out at an open mic that one day you're going to be, in a war zone, and in the middle of your show, they're going to have you get into a bunker because somebody's shooting at the base. So talk about a bomb. These kids don't know. I've literally been bombed at. So it's like,
There's a lot of people, I got asked to be on two armed forces entertainment shows. Neither one happened. One got canceled, but
yeah,
a lot of people will say, when you post that, they'll say, how come I want to do that,
yeah.
that kind of stuff. What do you say to people who hit you up to get on those, or what's the path for people to get on those?
I mean, I'm still struggling too. It doesn't matter what level you're at. It's like I still don't get emailed back. I'm still like, why does anybody love me? Even though I'm doing some fantastic stuff, I still feel we all have different levels of it, but we're all feeling it. And so, yeah, and a lot of this is just persistence, and just kind of being calculated about it a little bit, and kind of if you see somebody that's doing it, and they, you've worked with them or something, and they know your comedy, and then you can always ask if maybe they could recommend you and stuff. But a lot of these things, they're not like what they were. It's like a lot of people are like, I can't believe we invaded Iraq, and I was like, yeah, but I got a lot of work out of it. so, so if there's not a war happening, it's kind of hard to get. You kind of need the war to do the USO. So it's a tough one to kind of, get behind. But yeah, I mean, and then you just have to have like, yeah, people want something sometimes before they're ready. And, I remember I had a video, and it wasn't a great, like high end professional video or anything. It was at a comedy club, wasn't an open mic. but it was just one of those sets that was really tight, and I got a big laughs and everything. And I used that video to get TV and to get like other work and things like that. But if you don't have a video that shows you just popping the room, then you still need to focus not on the USO, not on the Comedy Store, not on comic strip. You need to focus on that video. The video, it's like an artist. A painter has to have a portfolio. You have to show that you can paint. And if you're a comic and you don't have a video that shows that you can do comedy, then nobody takes you serious. And so, because people use that word comic pretty loosely, so it's like, show me, what do you got? Show me that you can do this at a high level. And so that's the problem, is people, ask people for things, which is hard to do. I've worked on it. It was very hard for me because I didn't ask people for a long, long time. And I'm just now getting better at it, because I feel like if I ask you for something, I'm going to deliver. But if you ask somebody for something you don't have the comedy yet to deliver, then it's like, it's going to work against you. So I think that's usually what I say is like, if you have a badass video and it's great, then yeah, I'll pass it along if I think it's great. But if I don't think it's great, I'm not going to put my name on somebody, So if you're going to ask somebody to put their name on you, you better have a great clip of you doing comedy well.
Absolutely. That's great advice. So you've been in a relationship and both of you are top-notch comedians.
Thank you. Yeah. Our dog is pretty funny too. Like we're a very funny family.
And I'm sure it's rubbed off from the dog to you,
Yes.
or was that the other way around?
Oh, the dog's way funnier than I am. Leah's funnier than both of us, but the dog is way funnier than me.
So how is it inspire people? Because there's people in comedy that have support from their loved ones and those that don't. And you do have that support because she's in the business. So speak to us about making a relationship work.
Well, let's talk about support. I mean, I did not have it when I started. My father and I, he hated it, the fact that I wanted to be a comedian. So he wanted me to run his business and do his life, which is sales or whatever, or selling, diesel engines or, something I just had no interest in. And so, yeah, that took a long time. He eventually came around and, we were fine towards the end. But it's, yeah, I think it's one of those things you don't always need it with your immediate family. I can't imagine dating or marrying someone that doesn't believe in your dream. I would say that's a red flag. So, so if any of you out there that are dating somebody or married to somebody and they mock your dream, I'm not saying get out of it, but maybe I am. It's a catch-22, because it's like, it is amazing to date somebody or be with somebody, a long time that is in the same thing you're doing. But sometimes it's tough, because it's like, we tell each other, it's like, let's make sure we don't bomb on the same night, because one person needs the other person. We can't just both be crazy. We need one has to be supportive and one. So it's like, a lot of times as a comedian, we both have the same things, rejection and all the stuff we're going through. And if we're having it on the same day, it's a lot. So we try to coordinate. We're like, all right, dude, you get Wednesday to complain about comedy. I'll get Thursday to complain about this booker. You get this day to complain. So, it's a lot of like just not doing it all at once. And I think with Lee and I, it's like, there's some comedy couples, it works that they're kind of like together a lot. Lee and I, not so much. We kind of work together in the beginning and stuff, but we try to kind of have our own identity. And I think some guys do it and it works. They're married. They're like Rich Voss and Bonnie and all these people. Like, they found a way to kind of be a comedy couple. And there's a lot of famous people that do that, but Gracie and George and all that. But I just, that's not really, I mean, we do a little bit online and MC together once in a while, but I think it's important to have your own identity, because if you're just a comedy couple all the time, it's just, it's not going to be as fun for you and your art. So I think it's important to have the identity. So that's how we've worked on it over the years, giving each other space, and not just being, a couple, but being a separate person. So that helps a lot.
So how is it that, like, you each have things in comedy that you're wanting to talk about, and when she's going and talking about it, you go, okay, in your head, you're going, okay, today I'll listen. Tomorrow, I'm am I going to come back? Because it's hard, because you're both having it.
Well, it's also about taking care of yourself. We both, take care of our mental self, and I'm in therapy, and it's like, it's just, that's working on yourself helps when you're, in a relationship, and no matter what each other does, it's just, but that's, work on yourself helps, we've
Yes.
really worked on ourselves. So it's like, we get along well. So
I've seen the two of you work together on Sammy Obeid's KO comedy when you do
yeah, that's
sets.
fun. Sure, that's fun. Yeah, we have a good time. Yeah, we could do it. We enjoy it. It's just, but but at the same time, it's like you want to, especially if we want to talk about each other, then we can't really, we got to like separate so we can do that. We don't be in the same room because I don't want to. I want her to be able to do whatever she wants about me, and vice versa. So that's why sometimes it's better if you just go do your spot over this side of town. I'll do mine over here. We'll just both talk about each other, but nobody will hear.
Yes. I love to rip on my hometown, Portland, Oregon. There's so much you can say. And somebody from Portland was going to come to my show the other night, and I go, there goes all my material. I get it.
Very good.
Yeah. Well, you've been a doll to come back on and share inspiration. But in closing, before we get to where to follow you and where you're
Sure.
going to perform, what inspiration, aside from what I asked, might you have to give to people coming up in the biz or thinking about going to comedy or whatever?
Um, yeah, I mean, you just never know, when comedy is gonna, work out in the sense of like things happening and whatnot. I think the hardest thing is just not being frustrated. That's probably the hardest thing. It's just like, at the pandemic and all that stuff was rough for people, and then coming back and stuff, and I didn't know I was going to be working with Nate and Bergazzi and TJ Miller and doing stuff. And it was just kind of like I'd known people, and then I kind of reached out, and then just was able to prove myself on stage and things like that. So it started happening. And so just knowing that, like, if you really want to do this, you just have to continuously do it. You just can't quit, really, is the only thing that you just can't do, and you have to, be realistic about where you're at, and you have to kind of go with the times of comedy. Like a lot of us, I know you're kind of like me. It's a very set up punch sometimes, and I'm trying to expand out of that a little bit. I'm trying to do a little bit of that, but at the same time share more personal stuff, take risks, be okay with a little bit of like silence in a story, and be okay with sharing stuff that's not so quick to get the laugh, but more about a bigger story that will get a bigger laugh. And so I think it's just always growing, I think is huge. Just always, take risks, do things that are uncomfortable in comedy. Like if you don't like telling stories, then tell a story, figure that out. You don't like him, you don't think you're a good MC, then MC, be a good MC, figure it out. You don't think you have time to headline, figure it out. Find a way to do 45 or an hour, figure it out. So do things that, you're uncomfortable with, but at the same time, just keep being persistent. And, and now we're in an age of marketing. So it's like, brand yourself in a way that people are going to want to be attracted to you, and, get a press kit, send your, like I said, have a great video. And I mean, a great video. I can't stress this enough. The videos that people think they have that are good are not good. I guarantee you. I ran a full-time comedy club. Videos are not good. 90% of videos that comics send out are not good. You gotta have it, and you don't know. People are like, "I killed." Did you? Did you kill? Because I'm watching people get standing ovations of 20,000 people. That's killing. You did okay. You had 2 applause breaks. You didn't kill. Calm down. Like, be realistic about your comedy. Be realistic. Be the best. Don't act like you're the best. That's why everybody hates LeBron. He's like, I'm the greatest. Jordan never said that. That's why he's the greatest. Like, be realistic about where you're at and have a good video. I cannot stress that enough.
What's the number one mistake people make inside of a video that turns off a booker club owner?
Too much crowd work, probably, or too dirty. It's like, the F-bomb, just too much excessive cursing, too dirty. I mean, crowd work is okay if it's a little bit, maybe if it's organic, but don't be forcing it. You know, if it's a little bit like, you know, you're playing with the crowd to get into a bit or whatever, that's fine. But just something that's just, you know, you'd have to have the meat of your act, because usually it might be 5 minutes or whatever, or 7 minutes, whatever your, you know, time lot is. It should, yeah, you should and it's like, you know, you got to think about it. It's like the goal of this is to do jokes that, you know, are original and then people haven't heard before. That should always be the goal. That always should be the goal. Is it's like to crush it, I guess, would be a big one. But ultimately, it's, you know, why you got to stand out. So if you're not doing jokes on your video that aren't standing out, like that, you have to be proud of your set. So if you're proud of it, then you should send it out. If not, you got work to do, and it's not, you know, no need to rush it. But you know, just have something that you're proud of on there. Otherwise, it's like, why are you even doing this?
Yeah, I know that we both have a common friend in Steve Marshall.
Steve Marshall, what a lunatic. I love him.
And he is so anti what everybody else is doing. Like even
Sure.
talks about don't behave. And you were speaking about how we're both set up punch, and to move away, have the nerve, the chutzpah to move away from set up punch to be more authentic and creative with the audience is such a great.
Yeah. And I don't mean move away. I'm not saying it's like a bad thing, because sometimes it really works. Like you're in a club and there's people telling stories and you get up there, you know how it is, and you're like, pop, pop, pop. And then people are like, oh, okay. It changes the rhythm of the room. But I just think it's, but then there's times where it feels, you know, dated, and it feels like you're not being authentic to yourself. And sometimes we can get up there and be corny and kind of like do a version of ourselves, but not, you know, not that true Richard Pryor stuff. You know, he was doing that in the 70s, and it was like revealing stuff and talking. And that, to me, that's the goal, is to get to that. I think we should all try to get closer to that. I mean, Stephen Wright is doing Stephen Wright, and there's people that do a certain type of comedy, and it's very enjoyable. And I'm not saying don't do that if that's your thing. But one person said to me one time, comedian, he passed, Vic Henley, sweetheart. He told me, he said, you know, at this point in my life, he said, you're more interesting than your act. And so, and it really hit me. And I was just like, he's right. You know, I was like, I was a Mormon, you know, my family's criminals. Everybody's been arrested. You know, it's like, there was all these crazy things I wasn't talking about because I was just trying to get a laugh. You know, because I had all these great, you know, weed jokes or little people jokes or whatever it was that was killing, and I didn't have enough stuff about myself. So that's what I would say. It's not, you don't have to do that, but I think it's what furthers the art form. That's why Louis C.K. is so good, you know, because he's so vulnerable, he's digging in, and it's like that's why somebody like that is so great to watch.
Absolutely,
it's all real, you know.
Where are you going to be performing in the next couple weeks, and where do we follow you?
Well, if you want to get out to Vail, if you're one of those rich people that ski in Vail, I'll be at the Vail Comedy Festival. Leah Bonema and I will both be out there, the all Memorial Day weekend. So come out. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's a lot of comedians from all over the country. And yeah, I love a good festival. I'm headlining, I'm speaking on comedy etiquette. Like, it's going to be a whole thing. It's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, I have you can go to my website, dustinchafin.com, and I'll be headlining Colorado Springs, the 3 E's Comedy Club. I'll be out there June 30th and July 1st. And so, yeah, check that out. And then in October, I'll be back in New York with, we're going to be at Radio City Hall with Nate Bargatze. So that's a dream come true. And that's when people are like, you know, you pay dues and it doesn't work out. And it's just like, all right, man, sometimes it does. So I'm pretty pumped about that.
So exciting. What about Madison Square Garden?
Well, let's one step at a time. Calm down. Let's you know, Radio City's pretty good. All right. You don't need to jump to Madison. I'm okay with just Radio City. All right. You're like, oh, what about this? All right, dude, calm down.
What a dream.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I saw the Rockettes there. So it's a pretty big deal. Now I'm gonna be you know, on the same stage. So
thank you so much for coming on. You're fabulous.
Thank you.
Give a hug to Lee, and
I will. I'll give her a headlock. Yep.
I'm so glad that your Drybar is taken off. That's fabulous.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Go catch him on. So the Drybar special, does that have a name, a title?
Oh, Cranky Pants.
Cranky Pants. That's what it is.
Yeah. You can go to and you go to drybarcomedy.com, and I think if you put in D Chafin, Then you DCHAFIN, you get a free month of Drybar. So, and you can watch all the specials. So it's pretty cool. So you can just go,
Super.
yeah, I put that in there and you get a free subscription. It's like a Netflix thing. They have like all their specials and then you sign up. It's like $5 a month, but you can do a free for 30 days and then you can cancel it. So check that out if you want to do that.
Oh, well, I'll go do that
Yeah.
just for you. I'll go
Great.
sign up and only watch you.
I like it. I like it. Now you know.
Thank you, Dustin.
Bye, Linda.
Dustin
Thank you.
Chafin, everyone.
Yay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.